What is going on? What's going on, everyone? What's going on? Coach Derica here. As always, I need to make sure that I am live, that I see myself. There I am.
What is going on?
I'm definitely live, loud and clear. All right, so I'm going to jump right into it. I'm not even going to wait for anyone to get on here, but I do want to continue on with my Out of Brokenness series. But first, I want to definitely say I hope you guys are enjoying your Labor Day. I hope that you're spending time with your family and your friends, or maybe you're just really using the day to really get some more knowledge, get some more wisdom, spend time in the Word, cleaning up your house, whatever it is, or maybe you're just relaxing on today. I don't know. But nonetheless, I hope that you are having a purposeful day on purpose. So I want to jump right into it. Today's topic that I am covering, and I'm not going to be before you all long because I do have some things that I have to do as well still. Today's topic I want to talk about is triggers. Okay. I know there's a lot of topics out there. People have different sayings that they attach to that. There's a song out there about being triggered and things like that. But I want to talk about triggers because one thing that I've really experienced in my pathway to healing is the fact that there are certain things that do trigger people. There are certain things that trigger people, and something that you are triggered by is because of something that you have experienced, whether it was something you have experienced in your childhood or something you have experienced in different situations in your adult life. Okay. So I'm going to cover 5 topics today, and then I'm going to get on off of here. So when it comes to triggers, I realized in my process of peeling back the layers and healing and things like that, I've realized that I had a lot of triggers. And I did not know that. I just thought that that was me. But the thing is that when you don't know what something is, you don't even know how to identify it. You don't know how to work on it. You don't know how to fix it because you're not aware that this is an issue for you. So for me, I did not realize that I had triggers, and those triggers was a direct result of the things that I had gone through and how I had processed it. So one of the things that really, really sparked my journey to really desiring to heal was my children, and still is my children, because I did not realize that because of my inability to understand or interpret what I had been through, I did not realize that I had inadvertently affected them. I had inadvertently invited them into my world of trauma because that's the way that I was. That's the way that I responded. That's the way that I reacted. So I started to see certain things in them that I didn't necessarily like, and I could not really understand where they was getting that from. They was getting it from me, a lot of it. And so I really started to seek some answers. I really started to seek some change. I really wanted to be a model for them so that they can see that they can change this as well too. Now, granted, I know that I never intended to cause my children any type of harm, or I never intended to plant in them seeds that were not fruitful. That's something that I did not set out to do, but because of my refusal or my inability to recognize that I needed to change some things, I needed some healing, I needed a heart correction, I really literally needed a full transplant surgery. Like, I needed God to come in and cleanse my heart out and the inside out. Okay. I was really just making it. That's the way I was doing. I was really just making it. And because my trauma for me started as a child, I had mastered the ability of being able to separate myself from reality. I had mastered that. I could shut down on you in a hot minute. I could be in the same room with you and not be there. I could shut down. I had mastered that. That was my protection. So when I was triggered, that's what I would do. I would shut down. But because of that fact, it created a lot of inconsistency in my moods and different things like that. And my children had gotten to the point where they had to figure out how I was feeling today or what I was on today to see how they could move or how they could flow or how they could react, right? And so I'm so grateful that God made me aware of the things that I was doing or the ways that I was so that I could correct that stuff so that it didn't continue on, because it's an infectious path. It's infectious. It really, really is. It's contagious. So I want to talk about 5 points of triggers. I want to talk about the ones that I know that I'm most familiar with. Okay. Reading my mind trigger. And I've titled these the way I wanted to title them. So I call it the read my mind trigger. Okay. I was notorious for this, and sometimes it still happens and I have to correct myself. Have you ever been in a situation where you expected somebody to do something because they should have just known to do it? They should have just known to do it. I'm going to give you an example. I am the type of person that really don't want to ask for no help. Like, you should just know that I need help. For instance, carrying in the groceries, okay? Carrying in the groceries or taking out the trash. Not only do I not want to take the trash out because I'm a woman, okay? Because I'm a woman, and I have sons in the house, or even when I was married, okay? But also too, cleaning the kitchen or doing chores or something like that. If I have to get up and go get the groceries, then I should not have to carry in the groceries. If I have to get up and go fix the meal, then you should help me clean up the kitchen. Okay, that's just my process. That's the way that I thought. The trash. Why am I taking out the trash when I have two able-bodied men in this household that can take out this trash for me? Okay, so for one, I just feel like that's just a level of decency. Okay, male, female. Okay. For two, I'm going to give you another example. Have you ever been at work and the boss comes to you and he says, hey, do you think you can stay a couple extra hours or overtime? In your mind, you're thinking, okay, I mean, I could use the extra money, okay, I can clock the overtime. But your response in your mind also is thinking, what's wrong with him? Doesn't he know that I got to be back here at the same time tomorrow morning? Doesn't he know that I got to get out of here and get my children from daycare? Doesn't he know that I am tired? Doesn't he know that I'm not the only person here? Doesn't he know? Or how about, don't they know that I'm sitting out here carrying in these groceries and they sitting there on the watching the TV or playing these video games or on their phone? Don't they know that this trash needs to be taken out? Don't they know? And so I suffered from the read my mind trigger. That would trigger me every time. And where did that come from? Where did that come from? For me, that came from the fact of growing up, my dad just assumed that we should just know. We should just know. You automatically should know. Well, there is some instances where that is true, but there is some instances where I may need you to tell me what is on your mind, because I'm talking from a child standpoint, because I am a child. And so because I am a child, I may not know that I'm supposed to get up and go do this until you train me to do these things. So it wasn't until I realized what I was doing that I had to take a moment and step back and say, okay, look, these are the expectations that I have. The expectations is that when I go to the grocery store and get the groceries, I expect you to carry in the groceries. The expectation is that when this trash gets full, I expect you to take the trash out. The expectation is that, if I'm in here and I'm about to come in here and clean this kitchen and I'm not going to cook in the dirty kitchen, you need to clean this kitchen or get it together so that I can come in here and fix this meal. So I had to understand that people are not mind readers, and I couldn't expect people to automatically know what it is that I wanted them to do. Now, again, granted, there are some situations, especially in adult relationships, where there's things called consideration. Okay, there's things called consideration. Being considerate, as me being married when I was married, consideration, you should take out the trash. You should open the door for me. Okay. But because of the fact that I also was a person that don't like to ask for help, okay, I just assume you should know. You should just know it. So if I end up having to do it, then I'm letting you know that I'm not happy about it. But I'm not going to tell you what I'm not happy about because you should have read my mind. So that was something that I had to deal with because you guys, when I'm telling you right now, I had it bad. I had it bad. I had it bad. Now I express myself. Now I say, I expect you to take this trash out. I expect you to do it. So when you don't do it, I have a right to be upset because this is an expectation that I set out for you and I've made clear for you. Okay? I've made clear for you. That's right, Melissa. You can't expect someone to do something they haven't been in like exactly. Hey, Keith. So that is something that I had to deal with. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the feedback trauma trigger. The feedback trigger. It's so amazing to me when you begin to come out of these situations that you actually can see clearly how you was damaged and also the damage that you have done. Okay. So for me, the feedback trigger, it came from the fact of I grew up in a very highly critical environment. Okay. So my dad, if I brought home an A report card and had maybe a B or a C on it, I wouldn't get the, oh, wow, great job on the A's. I'd get, why is the C on here? Or say I would go and I would do my chores and do the kitchen and thought I was doing a very good job and say I missed one spot on the floor. This kitchen ain't clean. Don't you see the spot on the floor? Those types of things. And so, of course, I grew up being highly critical as well, too, with my children. I would see the good, but I would overlook that and point out the bad. I would point out the stuff that wasn't right. Okay. So I did not understand until it was pointed out to me, and I was actually in a place where I was ready to receive it, that what I was doing is I was causing them some sort of a trauma and not being able to deal with feedback. Not being able to deal with feedback, because when you have a feedback trigger, you don't know how to interpret what someone is going to say. You don't know how to interpret that. So that someone may come and give you a compliment and tell you, hey girl, you did a great job. Like that was great. Like that was really good. You did a great job. But because what they say doesn't match what you feel on the inside, you don't know how to receive that. Have you ever heard someone talk about, oh man, they don't know how to receive a compliment? The reason why people don't know how to receive a compliment is because they're used to getting criticized. They're used to getting criticized or rejected. So because they're used to that, it will be easier for them to receive a critique from you than it will be for them to receive positive feedback. They're actually more accustomed to receiving negative feedback than they are to receiving positive feedback. So for me, it was easier for me to receive you, even though I wouldn't like it. Okay. But I was more accustomed to the critique, to the criticism, because I grew up in a very highly critical household. My dad was very, very, very critical. Okay. Very critical. He'll spot the wrong 10 miles away, but overlook the right. Okay. So the good jobs and I'm so proud of you and stuff like that, I've gotten that twice from my dad in my 44 years. Twice. My mom was a lot better with it than my dad was, but understanding as a daughter, as a little girl, you're looking to your dad. If you had a dad in your life, and I know some people grew up without that, but if you had a dad in your life, you was looking for your dad to validate you. So even though your mom may validate you and tell you that you're beautiful, you're loved, you're enough, and things like that, when you have a male figure in your life that's not giving you that, that's what you're seeking. As a daughter, you are seeking that. And as a son, you're also seeking that as well, too. So if you have an overly critical mother that is constantly beating and berating you down and nagging and stuff, that will mess with your self-esteem and it will make you insecure. It'll make you insecure. So that's something that I dealt with because my dad never validated me. never validated me, doesn't feel the need that it has to be done. So I did not get you are enough. I did not get this is why I don't want you to do this. Okay, this is the effects of it. It was just do as I say do, not as I do. And that's the kind of ruling in the generation that my dad came from, and that's what he ruled us with. My dad ruled us with the iron fist, and he ruled us out of fear. So we were taught to fear him, and that's how but what he didn't realize is that he was creating a disorder internally for us. Because as I told you, I mastered the art of shutting down. I could be in the room and even my children, they call me out on it all the time. Mom, did you hear anything I just said? I would completely shut down. You could be in the room talking to me and I would hear nothing that you said. And that was a protection mode. It was something I did by habit. Too many people in the room, overwhelmed, shut down. In a situation where somebody's just being very negative, shut down. That was my response. Okay. So we've covered read my mind trigger, the feedback trigger. Now I want to talk about the people pleaser trigger. Okay. Yes, that's like someone complimenting your nice dress. You respond, girl, this whole thing. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So now I want to talk about people pleaser. You guys, I had this so bad, but I was almost passive aggressive with it, right? But I had this so bad. For me, my productivity, my ability to perform well, the way that my day went was based off of how many people that I was able to please that day, right? I felt like I was responsible for someone else's mood. I was responsible for making sure that other people were together, that other people were happy and everything. So in a lot of ways. So for instance, if you had a parent who would come home who would be angry because they had a bad day at work, and then they were angry because they had a bad day at work, and then they take it out on you. Okay. So all their anger and their frustration, now they're projecting it onto you, and you don't know what you did. You wasn't doing anything. You may have been playing with your toys. You may have been, drawing or whatever the case may be. And now all of a sudden you are the subject of their anger, of their frustration, of their disappointment, when maybe they should have had a conversation with the person that they were really bothered with, but instead they projected that onto you as a child. So that's where the people pleasing a lot of times comes from, because you don't like that feeling. So you're going to try to figure out what it is that you can do to correct that person's mood so that you can change the context of the situation and also how they are responding to you. So you end up becoming a people pleaser. You want to try to beat them to their mood. So if you already are feeling like they're in a bad mood or something's going on, you want to go ahead and try to create the scene to make sure that everything's good so that hopefully they don't snap out on you. So for instance, if you grew up in that type of household, you want to make sure the house is clean, everything smells good. You want to make sure that you are straight, your hair is in place, you clean, the walls is clean, the floors is clean, the baseboards is clean, everything's spotless, all the dishes are organized, everything is spotless, yard is straight, everything's good. Okay. And then when a parent comes home, you also have to make sure that the house is calm and quiet as well, too. So then you're kind of waiting in the background just to see how they respond, because you've been around trying to make sure everything's together. You want to see how they respond. And if they come in and they respond and they do a certain thing, then you know you're good. You know you can go on about your business, or you know that you can come and try to see if you can seek some of that validation, some of that praise. Good job. You did a great job. But instead you get, oh, okay, well, you finally did what you were supposed to do. So you grow up being a people pleaser. And a lot of times that will create that would create anxiety. That will create anxiety because when you walk into a room where there's so many people, you don't know how you can attend to everyone's moods, their thoughts about you. It's overwhelming. It's too much stimuli because you don't know how to make everyone happy. So when you are a people pleaser, a lot of times you'll find yourself dealing with migraines. You'll find yourself dealing with a lot of stomach issues and things like that because a lot of times, have you ever been scared? Have you ever been scared about something or to face something or to deal with something? One of the first body responses is going to be your stomach. Now you got to go to the bathroom. Why do you think when people are really, really terrified, they lose their bowels? It's a response. It's a response. So that is the third one, people pleaser. So we've covered read your mind, feedback, and now people pleaser. So the next one I want to talk about is the perfection trigger. Okay, the perfection trigger. And some of these are kind of similar, but different things kind of trigger it and tip it off. Okay, so the perfection trigger. I grew up with a perfections. I had one parent that was a perfectionist. Okay. One parent that was a perfectionist. All right. He wanted everything perfect. Everything had to be perfect. And he also wanted us to conduct ourselves as if we were perfect as well too. It's hard to live up and measure up to that expectation because we're human beings and we are not perfect. We are subject to error. Okay. We're not perfect. All right. One of the things that creates that perfection trigger for you is when it's rooted in fear and shame. So a lot of times us children would be the subject of the jokes. We would be the subject of the jokes, okay, around the table with the adults and things like that. That creates shame. That creates shame. Okay, so if you deal with acne, or if you ever dealt with being overweight, or if maybe your hair wasn't the right way, or maybe you wasn't considered as cute as your other family members, or whatever the case may be, that creates a level of shame within you. Okay, and my mother always tried to do the best she could to try to protect us from that, but there were some things that she just couldn't protect us from, and so we dealt with a lot of shame. It's body shaming and things like that. Any issues that we went through, that type of stuff, it creates a perfection trigger within you. So when you feel like you haven't performed or you haven't presented yourself in an area where you feel like it was perfect, it can jack you up. It can literally jack you up until you become aware of it. And once you become aware of it, then you know how to deal with that. And all of these things, whether you believe it or not, all of these things deal with how you were taught to respond to situations and how people responded to you. This is all learned. It's all learned. It's all your response to the situations that you have endured throughout your life. Okay. And not everybody has experienced, abuse and things like that. Some people have not experienced that. And that's wonderful. I wouldn't wish that on nobody. However, as I talked about in my first video, there are different types of situations. A car accident can create a trauma for you. So there's different situations that can create different responses for you and different triggers. Okay, different triggers. The next trigger that I want to talk about is the control trigger. Okay, the control trigger. All right. It is hard for a person that has grown up feeling insecure to loosen the control, to loosen the reins. Hey, Tamika, that to loosen the reins. Okay. I'm gonna give you an example. For me, because having control is something that always has been important for me, because I feel like when I don't have control, I don't know what's going to happen. It makes me feel very insecure, not knowing what's going to happen. Okay. And again, that was derived from the way that I processed things growing up. Okay. It was important for me to have control. So when I'm in a situation where I feel like I don't have control, then that's a trigger for me. That's a trigger for me. I don't feel good. I don't feel comfortable when I don't have things under control. And for a lot of times, a lot of people who deal with the control trigger, they have a hard time submitting. They have a hard time submitting to to people, submitting to authority, submitting to a boss, submitting to even God, submitting to God. It's hard for you to submit to God when you have a control trigger, because what God needs us to do is to walk by faith and not by sight. When you are required to walk by faith, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. That's why they call it blind faith. Faith is the evidence of things unseen. Okay? Unseen. So when you find yourself having a problem submitting to certain things, for me, as I said, I've been married. I had a hard time submitting, okay, because I felt like I dealt with so much oppression already of being me, of existing, of who Derica was. And Derica was created to be, right? Authentically me. Because of that, I had a hard time submitting to my husband at the time. I had a hard time with that. I really did. I had a hard time with that. Now, let me clarify some things. He was not the man that God had ordained me to be with. He was not my kingdom spouse. He was someone that I put myself with. Okay? But I didn't trust him. Okay? I didn't feel like I could depend on him. And so it was very difficult. And also, too, I knew that God wasn't ordering his steps. So let me put that out there, too. It's hard to submit in that time. And that's why we should be equally yoked. Okay. It makes a difference. And I'm going to get to that, too, because, that has to do with the level of brokenness as well, too. So I'm actually excited to get to talk about, being single and dating, and especially as a Christian, because that stuff makes a difference. I've done it the wrong way. More times than I care to talk about. But when you come into a place of healing, your secrets, the things that you kept in the dark, you now become transparent. Okay, you become transparent because they don't really hurt you anymore. The things that I'm still dealing with are things, the effects that me taking so long to decide to peel back these layers and heal, and how it's affected my children. That's the stuff that still hurts me. Okay. Because although I know that I love them and always will, it wasn't my intention to put them through my craziness, if that makes sense. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Okay. But control triggers, yes, you will find yourself having problems with authoritative figures because you're like, I don't know if I can trust you to control me or to tell me what to do or to lead me the right way, because everyone that I have trusted to do that in the past has failed me or let me down in some form or fashion. So how do you actually get through these things? How do you get over those things? Well, I can only share with you what I've done and what I've researched and what has worked for me. Statistically, some people say, well, you got to have this and you got to do this and you got to have that. But I am a big believer as well, too, that, God can deliver anything and anyone in any situation if you let him, if you ask him, and if you receive the answers that he's giving. A lot of times we're not in a capacity where we're willing to actually receive what it is that God has for us. And it may not sound like what we want, or it may require us to do things that causes us to feel like we're losing control. But in actuality, it's the best way for us to do it. So for me, I had to really, and I know this sounds corny, and I used to think it sounded really cheesy to say this because I just was like, this sounds so weird. But honestly, truly, I had to go to the point where that inner person, that inner child, where I started to stop to develop in a healthy format emotionally as a child. I had to go back to that point. And I had to talk about it. I had to talk about it. I had to go back to that point and I had to talk about it. So for me, as I said before, for me, that was a point of journaling. Okay. I journaled a lot. Okay. I would also use my phone and record myself talking through what I had been through. Ultimately, it ended up, a lot of that stuff I put into a book. Okay. So I wrote a book. But I believe that what you confess, what you say, what you release, okay, God, look, you know what? I need some healing in this area. I need some help in this area. I don't want to carry this burden anymore. This is too much for me to continue to carry, and this is affecting my life. It's affecting my livelihood. It's affecting the people that are around me. It's affecting my future. So I no longer want to carry this around. So what ends up happening is when you are aware of your triggers, you're able to actually go and say, okay, hold up. This is I titled the triggers so I can remember them. Okay. So when I say my read my mind trigger, that's what I call it. That may not be the clinical term for it, but that's my term. So when I say the read my mind trigger, when I know that is something has been triggered like that, I can quickly be able to identify, okay, I see what's going on here. Hold up. Let me set the expectation. Did I set the expectation? Because sometimes it's evident that I did not set the expectation of what it is that I expect. In a job, what I had to do, although I'm not working like in a job sense, my own business, but in a job sense, what would that look like? Hey, boss, we ain't calling him boss, you know what I mean? But hey, whatever, supervisor, boss, whatever, you know what I'm saying? I see. I'm so glad that you thought about me to be able to make some extra money and work a few more hours today. I definitely appreciate that. But you would also have to remember that they may not necessarily know that you're tired. They may not know you got to go home and cook dinner. They may not know that you got to go pick up your kids from school or daycare. They may not know that you got to go do this or do that. They may not know that. Okay. So you can't just expect them to automatically read your mind and how you feel. Okay. If you need help, ask for help. Ask for help. Set the expectation. Okay. So as I talked about earlier, I didn't like to ask for help, but I also realized that when I didn't get the help that I knew I needed, it would bother me because I felt like you should just know. So you have to set the expectation. So I had to get to a point where I was able to say, hey, look, this is what I want from you. This is what I expect. So when you don't do it, then I know that I set the expectation. And then so when you don't do it, then now we can deal with that point because now I've done what I needed to do on my part. Okay. Now I expect you to do what you need to do on your part. Also allowing people, giving grace, because sometimes people forget. It does happen. Sometimes people forget. It's just me and my son in my household now. So he's required to take out the trash. Okay. The expectation has been set that he needs to have the trash out Tuesday night, because if he don't in the summertime, if he didn't wake up in time to get the trash out, then we would miss the trash. Okay. So the expectation is set for him Tuesday night. You need to take out the trash because Wednesday morning, the trash man is coming. Okay. Now, as a parent, I'm still always going to, see if he got that trash out. I'm still going to look because I know as a teenager, he will sometimes forget, but I know that I have the expectation set. Okay. As far as feedback is concerned, the feedback trauma, when people give you a compliment, you have to be able to say, you know what? I'm worthy. I'm worthy of this. If someone tells you, you know what, I really, as the example was used earlier, your dress, I really like that dress. Instead of you responding, I'm going to use this example Melissa gave, girl, this old thing, that's evident of you having a hard time receiving positive feedback because you are so used to receiving negative feedback. And internally, subconsciously, you feel more relatable to negative feedback because that's subconsciously how you feel about yourself. That's the negative image that you have of yourself. Okay. So instead of someone telling you, hey girl, I really like your hair looks really good. Okay. That looks good on you. Instead of me saying, oh, I didn't think that, I would be able, it's thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You have to give yourself permission. And in order to give yourself permission, you got to open up your mouth and you got to start speaking it. Just like we speak our affirmations and things like that, you got to start speaking positive affirmations to yourself, not just affirmations about what you feel or what you want, your desires, but you also got to uplift yourself as well too in those words when you speak it as well too. You have to speak out those things and constantly remind yourself of who God says you are. You have to constantly do that. It's a unprogramming so that you can reprogram. Subconsciously, you have been programmed to believe these things about yourself. So when someone comes to you from a positive standpoint, a healthy standpoint, you're not able to receive it because you don't recognize that. Your mind is not able to compute that because you're so accustomed to what you have been indoctrinated or taught to believe that you have a hard time receiving the healthy aspect of relationship, whether it's on the job, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a marriage, it doesn't matter. You have a hard time receiving what a healthy relationship communication looks like. So the next time someone comes to you and says to you, hey, I really like that outfit you have on, instead of you thinking, oh, this old thing, girl, really? You think so? Just thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I really do. And keep it moving. You don't have to deflect away from that compliment. Take the compliment, receive the compliment. Okay? People pleasing. How you stop yourself from doing that? By saying no. You got to tell yourself no. You have to tell people no. Because what happens is when you go and take on roles of trying to fix everybody's problem, it becomes an expectancy. So then when you don't do it, they're looking at you like you done dropped the ball. But in actuality, you should have been doing this for yourself from the gate. I shouldn't have been doing this for you. You should have been doing this for you. This is your job. This is your stuff. So no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Hey, do you think that you can drive me up the road 10 hours? I need to go get something because it's easier for them to it's going to be cheaper for them if I pick it up, but my car's in the shop right now and I'll give you $10 in gas if you can drive me 10 hours up the road. And and then once we get back, then that'll just save them the shipping fee. Now I'm using something that's obviously, crazy, but that's the type of stuff that we allow people to do in our life when we know we should say no, but because we want to make sure that they're happy, we will inconvenience ourselves times 10. Now, how preposterous does that sound? So you want to save your friend the shipping cost of shipping a box to you. So instead, you want to ask me to drive you 10 hours up the road to get it and only give me $10 of gas, but you want to save them a shipping fee? Think about something that was actually preposterous that someone had asked you to do that was going to totally inconvenience you. And you know you had no business doing, but you still said yes because you wanted to make them happy. Think about it. I guarantee you, if you can find a situation where you've done that, you may have a people-pleasing trigger. And how do you break that? Again, you got to start saying no. Process that thing first. Okay, so you want me to drive 10 hours up the road, knowing I got to get up and go to work tomorrow to save your friend or your dude or whatever $13 in a shipping fee. And the only thing you giving me is $10 in gas. You can't even get me a Happy Meal? Nah, bruh. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So we got to think about that. We got to think about that because we do those types of things. And then we wonder why we feel stressed. We wonder why we ain't getting enough rest. We wondering why we can't meet deadlines. We wondering why we can't get stuff done. That's because we got too much on our plate. We taking on roles that we shouldn't be taking on. We doing things that we shouldn't be doing. How do you stop control triggers? How do you stop control triggers? By turning it over to God. You know what? I do not need to control this. Derica, this is you trying to control it. Let go and let God. I literally have to say that. Derica, this is you trying to control this. This is not your job. Let go and let God. Do not do anything else. I have to talk to myself like that. I have to talk to myself like that. And lastly, the perfection trigger. The perfection trigger, you have to deal with your insecurities. You need to identify them. What are your insecurities? What is your response to feeling insecure? For some of our responses, we like to hide. We like to withdraw. Okay? We like to hide. For instance, I told you guys that I can shut down. I can be in a room full of people. Someone could be having a full-blown conversation with me and I can shut down. And I won't hear nothing you said. I have to have you repeat the whole thing. So make sure when you guys are talking to me and we meet face to face, make sure, hey girl, you with me? No, I'm just playing. Don't do that. But listen, you really do. You have to make sure that you identify those things. Write them down. Write them down so you know. Okay, you know what? You know what? It is not my job to be perfect in everything. I am a human being. I'm a human being, and it is not my job to seek perfectionism. It's my job to seek consistency. There is something my dad used to tell me. My dad wasn't all bad, just so you guys know. I love my parents. I love them dearly, okay? He did teach me some good things, all right? There's one thing that he used to say. If you give your best, what else is there? If you give your best, what else is there? For some of us, our best is riddled with trauma, wrong thinking, unhealthy attitudes, unhealthy actions. In order for us to get, as Tanisha says, to our best version of ourselves, we have to be willing. We have to be willing to lay down our interpretation of life. We have to lay down our interpretation of life. Because if you have been through things, it is very possible that you are in a state where you get triggered by everything. Everything's triggering you. The next thing you know, people are like, oh, you a hothead. You are always going off on somebody. That, I'm telling you, trust me, I'm telling you, if you are that person or if you have ever experienced that, save yourself. And start identifying that stuff. Start identifying it. What have you been through and what is your responses to the things that you have been through? You need to know it, because the first part of actually beginning to peel back those layers is being aware. Is being aware. That why you think they have interventions? They have interventions because they want that alcoholic or that addict to be able to hear from other people that are being affected by their addiction, because they may not be aware that it's hard for a child who was dealing with the alcoholic parent, okay, to know how their alcoholic parent is going to come home, to know if they're going to come home violent and want to tear up the house, or if they're going to come home extra sweet and kind. That creates trauma. And traumas create triggers. So in order for you to be able to deal with your triggers, you're going to have to accept and realize that you need to identify the trauma. What is the trauma? What is the scenario? Look how you grew up. Okay, look at how you grew up. For some of us, we didn't grow up with a lot of trauma, but there's situations that happened that created trauma. Maybe we lost a loved one. Okay. Maybe we got in a bad car accident. Maybe we had some type of was in some type of violent situation that happened to us as an adult. It's not always in our childhood, but sometimes it is. So that is pretty much what I have for you today. I'm really actually loving this. I was kind of hesitant about doing this because we've been challenged for one. So I'm definitely making sure that I'm doing this challenge. But I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to require me to talk about more It's gonna make me talk about more. This is pushing me a little bit outside of my comfort zone. A live video every day for 30 days. But look, y'all, this is video number 4. So I already got 4 down. So that means I got 26 more to go. Y'all pray for me. But no, it's gonna continue to get fun. I definitely don't want to come over here and just jibber jabber. I'm going to also have some people joining me. So there's going to be a lot of different things that I have planned for this next 26 days or so. So keep coming back, keep joining me. I thank you so much. You guys share this video, and I appreciate you guys. You have a wonderful, wonderful remainder of, I guess, the Labor Day holiday, even though I don't even know what day Labor Day really is, to be honest with you. But anyways, you guys enjoy your day, okay? If you eating some barbecue, then you need to make sure that you wash it down with that drink to shrink, okay? If you eating some mac and cheese, then you need to make sure you wash it down with that drink to shrink, okay? So y'all get with your people, your distributors, and get you a couple gallons of drink to shrink ordered, and let's make sure that we ain't just fit and healthy mentally and internally, but also physically as well too, because if you're not healthy physically, that definitely can affect your emotions in your healing process. All right, you guys, I'll talk to you later. Peace.